From the Pyle Media Ventures studios in Noblesville, Indiana, this is the Jacob Pyle Show. With tonight's guest, voice actor and announcer, Zac Brown, and the host of our show, Jacob Pyle.
Thank you, Christina Ernie. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jacob Pyle Show. My name is Jacob Pyle, and I'm glad to have you with us. For the next 30 minutes, unscripted conversations, but with a difference. No shouting, no cussing. All topics that are being discussed on the Jacob Pyle Show have been approved by me before the show taping. As I mentioned last week on our program, this week's show is going to be a very special show, and you will see what I mean. I should mention one thing. This is a full circle moment for me. Back in March, I had the opportunity to interview a lady by the name of Christina Ernie, who is a meteorologist. 2 weeks after her interview, Christina filled in for me as the host of the show, and I was a guest on my own show. And then tonight, Christina Ernie was kind enough to be our guest announcer for this week's show, filling in for our usual announcer, Zac Brown. And guess who we have in the studio with us tonight as our guest? The announcer of our show, Zac Brown. Now, before I bring him out, you may not recognize his face, but I promise you, you will certainly recognize his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer of our program, Zac Brown.
Hey!
All right, Zac, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jacob.
You're welcome. I should explain one thing to our viewers before we go on. Now, I jokingly will tell people this, and I've had people question me. Yeah. You are not the same. Obviously, you're not the same Zac Brown as in the Zac Brown Band.
Correct. Yeah. So really, the only difference is that my name ends with an H, and the Zac Brown Band ends with a C. But yeah, I mean, I've heard that for the last 10, 15 years. I wish I could get like free concert tickets out of it, but what can you do?
Right. True, that's very true. So tonight we are mostly going to talk about you as a person, and we'll delve more into your role as the announcer of the Jacob Pyle Show towards the end of the show. But to start things off, go ahead and tell us a little something about yourself.
Sure. Just like Jacob. Well, actually, I don't know if Jacob's from Noblesville, but are you from around here? Or?
I grew up in a small town known as Sharpsville, Indiana, which is about if you're familiar with where Tipton, Indiana is,
yeah.
It's from there. I just moved to Noblesville about a year ago.
Okay, right on. So you're a Hoosier. Mm-hmm. I'm also a Hoosier. I was born in Evansville, Indiana, which is on the southern tip of the state. It kind of goes on the border between Kentucky and Indiana. I was born there. Then we moved to Carmel, Indiana when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And then from there, I went to college at Indiana State University, got my bachelor's degree in communications with a minor in radio, TV, film. And I actually was doing insurance for the last 10 years or so, up until about 3 years ago when I decided to go full time. I've just been doing that and haven't looked back.
Yeah, what a coincidence that you mentioned Carmel, because I live in Noblesville, but I work in Carmel.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Nice.
So what were some of your inspirations into getting into voice acting?
Yeah, great question. Because it's not, a common thing, and whenever I tell people what I do for a living, they're like, huh? Basically, ever since I was a kid, even just watching cartoons, I would always try to imitate the voices on the TV, and I've gotten really good at it. And even through high school, I was like the voice guy, where people would come up and ask me to do a voice and stuff like that, and it never really clicked then that I could actually do that for a living, but you can. What got me really into it was I was working at my insurance job one day, and I was like, you know what, I've got all the equipment already because I've had it for years because I also do music, and I said, hey, let me just give it a shot. And I started auditioning for things and started to slowly kind of grow a reputation. And but really, I guess what got me into it was just from my childhood and just the joy of entertaining people, the joy of doing voices and making people laugh. And I was like, hey, if I could do that as a job, sign me up. You know.
Yeah, I will tell you. I have this production company thing. I've told you before. This production company thing I have on the side. I wish I could make it a full-time job, and I wish I could.
Yeah.
But I can't, because that's because right now, because I do a lot of other things, like I copy VHS tapes to the side and things like that. But I'm also a full-time night shift worker too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's hard. It's a lot. It's a lot of work if you're going to do both. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I mean, I try to make it work out. That's the most important thing. So, without saying any names or brands, because I don't want to get you into trouble, other than as the announcer of our show, what were some of your most favorite voice acting jobs you have ever done?
Some of my favorite voice acting jobs, I mean, there's so many. Over the last 3 years, I've probably done over 1,500 jobs, separate jobs. Out of the favorite ones, and yeah, you're right, I can't talk about a lot of them because we have to sign a lot of times what's called an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, so I'm not allowed to talk about certain ones, but I can talk about some of them for sure. I would say that maybe one of my favorite ones, I did an audiobook recently where I played a cat. I narrated the whole book. I did all the characters in the book and narrated the full book. And I was a cat, and the cat, gets adopted. And it's a very mischievous cat, and it's a children's book, so he gets into different adventures and gets into trouble and things like that. And they wanted the cat character to have a southern accent. So that was really fun. That was probably one of my more favorite ones that I've done recently. Another favorite one that I've done is I got to do, I guess I can't really talk about a whole lot about this one, but let's just say I did the voice of a toy, which I found a lot of fun because I could just really go, up here with it and, be really exaggerated, and that would probably be a really fun one. The toy's in production right now, but I can't really talk much about, the name of it or anything like that.
Right. Gotcha. What were some of the benefits of being a voice actor? Did you enjoy watching and hearing yourself when your commercials came on TV?
Funny thing that you mentioned that. I've actually never, and this will maybe be important later, but I've never actually had my voice on a commercial that's been on TV, at least in Indiana. The only commercial that I actually did was a voiceover I did for a commercial in, I believe it was New Zealand, and it was over a milk product, like a protein shake. But yeah, whenever I hear myself though, I kind of cringe, just because I don't like hearing myself a lot of the times, believe it or not. I try not to I don't know, call it nerves or because I always hear myself differently when I hear myself, played back to me. So I try to avoid it actually if I can.
Yeah. All right. We have about 48 seconds left. In a moment, we're going to be talking more about your role on our show. But before we do that, do you have any inspiring advice that you could give to any voice actors that are wanting to be voice actors?
Yeah. A lot of people say, well, I don't have the voice to be a voice actor. And the thing is, people want, and especially, nowadays with the advent of AI and all of those things, a lot of people are concerned about that. I would give, for any advice that I give to any young person or any older person that wants to get into voice acting, is you just got to go for it. You only live once, I know that YOLO is such a common thing people say, but it's true. I would say that people want to hear authenticity. They want to hear, an actual person's voice. They don't actually all need to be the announcery type voice. If you want to get into voice acting, just go for it. You can do things for free just to kind of get experience. You can do whatever you want just to get your feet wet and explore it.
All right. We have to take this first break. When we come back, more with our announcer, Zac Brown. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My guest for tonight is not really a guest at all. This is Zac Brown. He is the announcer of our show. Now, we are going to go ahead and talk about your role on our show, the Jacob Pyle Show. Now, you talked earlier about how your voice is not really seen in a whole lot of commercials except in New Zealand. Now, as the announcer of our show, what do you like? I know the story because I'm the producer and director of the show. But go ahead and you tell us how you and I started working together.
Yeah. So as with any business, you have several spokes on the wheel. One of those spokes is a website called Upwork, and it's a freelancer website. And Jacob reached out to me, messaged me, and asked me if I'd be interested in being the announcer for the show. And I mean, of course, I'm going to jump on that opportunity. So that's how he found me.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what happened on my end. So I was watching one of your, I was watching a commercial that you did.
Okay.
One of the commercials that you did, and I was listening to it, and it was in a strong. I always try to look for announcers on our program to have a strong voice.
Yeah.
I would offer to announce the show myself, but I'm also the host of the show, and that's not really fair for me to do that. So, but I came across one of your commercials, and you did such an amazing job. I thought that, you know what, he might be a good announcer for our program, and there you go. That's how it turned out to be. Now, what do you think of the show so far? You've seen a few episodes.
I love the show. All your guests are very interesting, admirable guests, career people that make a change in the world and the lives of people around them. So yeah, it's a great show. I love it.
I'm going to ask you the same question Christina Ernie asked me when she conducted our interview for our April Fool's show back in April. Do you have any favorite guests?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Christina Ernie. I actually watched that episode pretty recently, and yeah, it's being a meteorologist is always seemed like a very interesting job to me, and that was a very interesting interview. I would say that she would be maybe my favorite guest, but they're all good. They're all great guests. They're all great individuals. Also, what comes to mind is Frederick Golder, who is an attorney, right? And talking about, interviewing people that, that are doing admirable things. For example, he was getting tired of having to help people settle things through court as a lawyer, which obviously you do. That's your profession. But he actually ended up authoring a book about how to settle conflicts outside of court, So, that just speaks to the caliber of the type of people that you bring onto the show. So, he was great. Christina Ernie was great. Also, speaking of Christina Ernie's episode, I totally would have gotten that tornado question wrong, too, about the underpass. Because I actually just recently found out that you're not supposed to do that either. And I was really confused by that because I feel like I was taught that at some point. I don't know. But, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing because I think my favorite guest, I told Christina Ernie this when we did that. But I always say that picking my favorite guest is like trying to figure out which of your kids is your favorite.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you can't do that.
No. But I would say, and I agree with you, Christina Ernie was a good person. Lori, we had a girl on by the name of Lori Kay, and she had we just recently, as of the day we taped this, we recently reshowed her Lori Kay's episode, she was the lady that conducted John Lennon's last interview.
Oh,
before his
yeah.
passing.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a pretty emotional. It was a pretty emotional episode. So, so I have to. I gotta ask you one other thing too, because I'm just curious. What do you think of my? I mean, we've talked about voice acting today so far.
Yeah.
What do you think of my singing voice?
I don't know if I've heard your singing voice.
I can maybe give you a little something off the top of my head. Let me see.
Your hosting voice is great.
My hosting voice is great. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Wouldn't have missed it for you, girl.
Yeah?
Yeah. Ronnie Millsap, if you want to look that up.
Oh!
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
my
the name
whole life worthwhile with a smile.
Nice.
Thank you. All right, now, to make you. Now I gotta ask you. I think I asked you this before we taped.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of our little? Now I want to do something with you if you don't mind. We're going to let you do what you do best, which is to demonstrate your vocal abilities, I guess you could say, to our audience.
Sure.
I have written a script for you to read, which I will get that up for you now.
Okay.
But while I'm getting it up, what do you think of our theme music that we use for our show?
I love it. It's classy and timeless. I mean, you could play that theme music 100 years ago, and it would be amazing. You could play that theme music 100 years from now, and it's just classic.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story about the theme music. I wanted to do a late night show. Most late night shows, what time do you go to bed?
I mean, it just varies. I would say a lot of times I don't fall asleep before 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wake up. The latest I go to sleep is maybe like 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the morning. But,
Yeah.
So sometimes you do get to catch my episodes when they go live.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Midnight.
But going back to other late night shows,
Mm-hmm.
they have this big band, this big orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
And and what's funny about that is that we had, when we first started doing this show, this was back in September, we were originally going to have a co-host sitting next to me,
Mm-hmm.
and we were going to talk about various topics and things like that, but he wanted to get into topics that, let's just say that what he would think that most people would be interested in at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. In other words, stuff that can't be said on TV. And I simply told him, I'm sorry, we can't, you want to do current event stories, UFO sightings,
Ooh.
things like that.
I've seen a UFO.
I don't get into that. I don't get into those kind of topics, unfortunately. And I told him that I'm sorry. We at one time, I'll tell you this one story. This was way back in 2015. We had a guest we used to close the show with an editorial or a current event thought piece, and we actually had a guest threaten to not be involved with our show anymore.
Oh wow!
Because we weren't because of it. So I said,
because you weren't covering what they wanted to talk about.
I think that's, or I think what it was I guess the current event topic. They were against it, and they didn't want to be a part of it. So I was so I told them I don't feel comfortable doing current event stories anymore.
Sure.
And and he decided to get all mad at me and things like that, and he was and I kicked him. I had to kick him off the show.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, humanity is a fickle thing. People, there's people that will tell you you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and there's people that just
that don't care.
Right. So
all right. Well, listen, we have to just do you. Yeah, we have to take this final break because I can see that from the timer here it is almost 20 seconds. When we come back, I promise you, we will have you do your vocal abilities. I'll finish my little story, and yeah. We'll be back with more of Zac Brown after this. Welcome back. My guest for tonight is not actually a guest at all. He's our announcer on our program, Zac Brown. Now, when we had to cut for that break, we were talking about favorite episodes and favorite things. I would like to make this one comment, and then we'll let you do your thing. I think I messaged you this before. When we had you record the announcer as part of the show, I compared you to what's his name? The guy that did the Disney movies or the Disney trailers back in the day.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. I don't know his name, but
yeah.
But I know what you're talking
our
about.
Feature presentation,
Right?
Yeah. Something like that.
And now our feature presentation.
Yep, there you go. All right, so I have written you a script that I'm gonna have you read for us now. Here it is.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Alrighty.
And then we are now going to let you show your vocal abilities in front of our audience.
Okay.
All right. And yeah.
All right.
We'll talk after, and we'll talk more about it after.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
From the Pyle Media Ventures Studios in Noblesville, Indiana, this is the Jacob Pyle Show with tonight's guest, me, Zachary Brown, and the host of our show, Jacob Pyle.
Awesome. Yes. That was good. All right. Yeah, I'm sure our viewers loved hearing that. Let me just say one thing before we do this. How do you like? I know what I was gonna say. Normally when we tape an episode of the show, you are not actually in the studio with us.
No.
You actually record, like you mentioned earlier. You record your stuff in a separate studio in Indianapolis.
Correct. Yep. I have I basically created a soundproofed studio that I have all of my equipment in, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. So basically, Zach's not with us actually in the studio when he does that. I mean, when you watch the episodes, it feels like you're actually with us, but you're not.
Yeah.
So, same with Christina Ernie. Christina Ernie lives in Rhode Island, and she was kind enough to do your intro in place of you.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think of Christina Ernie?
Yeah, she did a great job.
She did a good job.
Yeah.
And so she's not actually with us in the studio. So yeah, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea here. What is your I think we talked about some of your favorite Jacob Pyle Show memories. So while we have you here in person today, is there anything you want to share with our viewers about the show? Is there anything you want to, because we're going to be, because this coming summer we're going to re-show, beginning with the episodes I taped back in September of last year when it was originally Night Talk, and then we're going to re-show, excuse me, and then we're going to re-show some of all the Jacob Pyle Show episodes before we begin our new season in September. Is there anything you want to say?
I'll be watching. I can say that. I think we talked about this when I got here, is that coming up here for this next season, you were going to be having basically a setup at, I don't know if I can mention it, but the library, a nearby library that has really good lighting. And I can tell Jacob's always improving the show, doing changes and making the best of what he has. And yeah, it's an amazing experience, and you guys should watch every single episode.
Right. Yes, I absolutely have to agree. So, we still have about 6 more minutes left of our interview. do you have any? I'm trying to think of a good question to ask you because
Sure.
while we have you here, I just want to say too that in front of everybody, you do an amazing job.
Thank you.
You do a wonderful job as our announcer.
I appreciate that.
And I'm just so happy to have you as part of our show.
Happy to be a part of it.
Even though you're not here with us every week, in person, but
I'm here in spirit.
You're here in spirit, and that's the most important thing. I think I think that's pretty much all I have, other than to ask you, if they need a voice for their project, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I have a website. You can visit there, www.the-voice-guy.com, and you can message me there about your project. So if you're a business, for example, that needs somebody to do the recorded thing whenever you call, press 1, whatever it may be, things like that. Whatever it is, no job is too small or too big. Visit my website again. That's www.the-voice-guy.com, and let me know what you need, and I'll be happy to help.
All right. We have a little tradition that we do. Can you grab those pens that are back behind the phone for me? I'm going to try to open them up real quick.
Sure.
I'm doing this. In the early 60s, you probably weren't around then.
No.
But in the early 60s or late 70s, there was this variety show on the Carol Burnett Show. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Guess we just get started, and before you know it, 'cause it's time for me to say so long. And then, but anyway, at the end of her show, she would have the guests, whoever the guest is that week, sign an autograph book. I happen to have on hand with me today the coveted autograph book of the Jacob Pyle Show.
All right.
And I am going to flip this over to the first page for you. And I will let you do the honors of signing it for me.
Sure.
There you go. While I tell the viewers, thank you so much for watching. My guest for tonight, of course, is Zac Brown, the announcer of our program. And you want to help me say goodbye?
Yeah. Until next time. Wait, do you want me to say something like that?
I'll cue you when I come in. How's that sound?
Sure.
All right. I lost my line. I'll be back next week with another guest to talk to. Until then, for Zac Brown, Christina Ernie, and all of us on the Jacob Pyle Show, I'm Jacob Pyle. Thank you all for watching, and good night.
And good night,
everybody. There we go.
If you want to be a guest on the Jacob Pyle Show, or if you would like a DVD copy of tonight's program, send Jacob an email. His email address is jtpile1@aol.com. Or if you are ordering a DVD copy of tonight's program, send a $10 check or money order to the Jacob Pyle Show, care of Pyle Media Ventures, Post Office Box 154, Noblesville, Indiana 46061. Please include the air date seen on your screen when ordering. Residents outside of Indiana add $5 shipping and handling. Join us next week on the Jacob Pyle Show, where Jacob's guest will be the herb guy, Stephen Horn. This is Christina Ernie speaking for the Jacob Pyle Show, a Pyle Media Ventures presentation. This programming has been pre-recorded.